So today Nintendo finally released the third installment of the Splatoon series on the Nintendo Switch. I am a very big fan of Splatoon. I'm not really deeply into the community, but I very much enjoy booting up Splatoon 2 and playing it every now and then. I think it's a blast. So the initial announcement of Splatoon 3 very much excited me. However, during the lead up to release, I was a bit critical of the game. My main worry is that the game in the lead up to release looked like just Splatoon 2 again with some quality of life updates. It definitely looked like a solid upgrade, there was no denying that, but there wasn't really a groundbreaking new mode that kind of made this game its own thing. Like say for example Splatoon 2 had Salmon Run going for it. I can't really list anything else because there's only 3 games. The point is, Splatoon 3 really needed a big new selling point mode to put on the back of the box, and sadly it did not deliver that. So to the people in the comment section of that video, I still stand by what I said. However, what this game does have going for it is quality of life. In the lead up to the game, I thought the game had very minimal quality of life changes, and that honestly you could probably just get away with playing Splatoon 2. Playing the game itself paints a completely different picture. Now, there is totally the argument to be made of if all of the game has going for it is really quality of life changes, then why wasn't this just an update to Splatoon 2? And to some extent, I agree. But also what you've got to consider is that the games industry works, not like that. The only games that are really getting major quality of life updates 5 years after release are free-to-play live service games. And with the amount of those that are failing recently, honestly, just having a straight release where it's you have one game, you have the next game, then the other, and they update it as they go, and there's no microtransactions. Honestly, in the current industry, with games like Halo Infinite completely failing their live service, is very refreshing to see. So while I kind of would have preferred an update to Splatoon 2, I can appreciate Nintendo's need not to make another live service game with a battle pass and tons of microtransactions. So if buying a new game for a major quality of life update is the sacrifice needed for that, then honestly I can live with that. Just anything not to have another free-to-play live service multiplayer game with a ton of microtransactions and battle passes and stuff. This business model of putting all the quality of life changes in the new game rather than going back and updating them in an old game, honestly I'll take it for the sake of not having microtransactions, because there is an appeal to having that old style release schedule for games where it's we release a new game, there's improvements in the game, you get everything from buying the game and you don't need to spend a ton of money on it, and then you wait for the next game. Okay, now that we've discussed my pre-launch concerns with this game, let's get into discussing the actual product itself. And I think it's very good. During the pre-release phase, I was very concerned about the amount of quality of life because I figured Splatoon 2 with just some quality of life changes isn't enough of a selling point for me. But there are so many quality of life changes. I think the best way you can describe Splatoon 3 is Splatoon 2, but without any of the crap people didn't like from that game. It is a near flawless version of Splatoon 2, and I think that is a pretty solid selling point. A feature that I particularly like is the replay mode, which is basically Halo's Theater if any of you have played that. It gives you full native recordings of your last 5 or so played games, and you can change the angles and stuff and pause it and play, and this is a really good feature. These are the kind of changes I expect from a game sequel, and I wish Splatoon 3 had more modes like this. I really like the replay mode. Replay and theater modes are great for 2 main things. One, if you get a really awesome moment in the game and for whatever reason you forget to record it, you can go back and preserve that forever. And 2, if you think you screwed up somewhere and want to get better, you can watch your footage, go back over it, figure out what your main choke points are, and figure out how to fix them. These kind of modes are a really great way to reflect on how you play the game and just improve. I also really like how you can upload your replays onto Splatoon's network, I think it is, and there's codes you can get people to put in and watch your replays. But the one problem is I wish there were more options like this. For example, I really wish there was an option to upload a replay to YouTube or Twitter, or God forbid, Reddit. Replay mode in Splatoon 3 is a fantastic idea and I really like its current implementation, however I feel like it could use even more improvements going down the line. One problem that I do have with Splatoon 3 so far is that for all of the fantastic quality of life changes that honestly kind of sell this game for me alone, there is one still that isn't fixed. Sheldon still won't shut up! There's an option to speed up Sheldon's dialogue, which has been there since Splatoon 2. I don't know if it's in the first one because I never played that one, but that option still didn't change the fact that he goes on for so long. Even when you are speeding him up, he just talks and talks forever. And it's I don't care about you summarizing to me what the Kenza Splattershot Dually Scrimblow Bimblow bow and arrow does. I just want to get my NES Zapper. And while I'm still on a complaining bit in this review, I just want to get this point out of the way now so everyone knows, Nintendo Online is still garbage. This is the paid online service in a $60 game, by the way. On a more positive note, despite having the biggest city location in any Splatoon game so far, being just completely beautiful, really fun to explore, and just way bigger than the past 2 games, this game has such short loading times in comparison to its predecessor. I'm gonna let the full startup loading screen run on screen now to kind of demonstrate this, but Splatoon 3, in comparison to Splatoon 2, it's so much easier to just hop in and play a few games. And this is definitely bolstered by the fact that you can skip the news section! Since Splatoon 1, this stupid news section has hands down been the biggest problem with this series, and it has finally been resolved. This, personally, and the quick loading times, makes the game worthwhile for me on that basis alone, because it's just so much easier to jump into. Also, the second worst decision made with designing Splatoon 2, making Salmon Run only available at specific times of the day, has finally been resolved. 24/7 Salmon Run, I don't know why that wasn't in Splatoon 2, but I'm so glad to have it here. The idea that if you don't play Splatoon at certain times of the day, just whole modes of the game are completely inaccessible to you is ridiculous to me, and I'm so glad it got amended in Splatoon 3. Also, speaking of modes, I hear the campaign is good. I don't play campaign, so I can't judge, but I hear it's solid, so if you like campaign, you'll probably enjoy this. Now, let's talk some real talk. Let's talk multiplayer. Let's talk Turf War. I really like the multiplayer in this game. It plays to pretty much all the strengths of the previous Splatoon games, so if you enjoy Splatoon 2 Turf War, you'll probably enjoy Splatoon 3 Turf War. It's definitely a more of the same type situation, but I think in this case, that's a good thing. Especially because the experience surrounding Turf War has never been better. Splatoon 3's lobby is really great. Splatoon 2's lobby was serviceable, it's just a flat screen with a list of player names, which is just like pretty standard lobby stuff. Whereas Splatoon 3 has that functionality, but it also has a whole training area you can use while you're waiting to matchmake into a game, which is such a smart choice. I really love it when games give you things to do while you're loading on matchmaking, and I really wish more games would do stuff like this. It's a really great way to ease off how boring load times can be sometimes, and I think it works really well for a game like Splatoon, where you can just go around inking the floor and it feels great to do. So overall, gameplay-wise, Splatoon 3 is basically just more of Splatoon 2 with some new weapons and stuff, but the experience surrounding that is so much better than it ever was in Splatoon 2, and makes the upgrade, in my opinion, worth it. Like I said before, this game is basically Splatoon 2, but with 90% of the flaws completely gone, making for a near-perfect Splatoon game. I'm so far loving every minute of it, and while I do wish it had a big new selling point mode, and I think it really could have used that, I do still like what we got and think it's a very good upgrade from Splatoon 2. In my opinion, I think this game is absolutely worth buying. Whether you have Splatoon 2 or are getting into the series for a first time, I think you'll be able to appreciate at least something about this game. Oh yeah, then they have that puzzle mode, I guess.